I would be straight away going to my topic because the time limits are there. The climate resilient land use systems for agroecosystems with particular reference to tropical home gardens. I need not have to much mention or explain about the importance of climate change in the present context. It has touched upon all the sectors of human life. Definitely, it also has affected our agriculture scenario very much. And the quote is very important that climate change is the most severe problem that we are facing today, probably more serious even than the threat of terrorism, by Sir David King. So it's very important, and it mentions it, or it warns us the kind of change that is going to bring in all sectors of human life, especially on agriculture productivity. I'll be focusing more on the agriculture aspects. The climate change impacts on agriculture productivity. If you look at this, it's very important to see that there is the future projected changes are very much alarming. Like the important crops like rice, wheat, maize, etc., are going to face severe decline in the productivity in the years to come if the business as usual scenario is going on in the climate change sector. And it is very important rather to see that I will give the pointer. Okay, you can see that the lower latitudes, especially the tropics, are going to be the major scapegoats, or rather these regions are going to be the much affected areas as far as the impacts of the climate change are concerned. And you can see that the wheat and the rice productivity declines in the lower latitude, especially in the maize yield. It's very much alarming. So this is the kind of scenario that is going to happen. So what it implies is that there is a paradigm shift is imminent, or there is a need for to bring a paradigm shift in the land use strategies. And we need to go for those kinds of systems which promote ecologically and economically viable land use practices and agricultural practices that are resilient to climate change. Because, especially I'm coming from Kerala, and the last 3 years, the Kerala has seen unprecedented changes in the climate, and we have been a large number of landslides and floods, which have, and it has estimated that the 2018 floods have contributed to about 30,000 crore worth productive financial loss to our agriculture sector itself. And so we need to go for the land use practices that are adaptable to climate change and that offer ecological balance and promote eco-restoration. And in the present context of the theme, this is a very important thing. The World Environment theme itself is the eco-restoration and enhance agriculture productivity with cost effectiveness. So these are the areas which we need to focus in future if we want to really go, or if we want to really abate the kind of issues that are going to happen as a result of climate change. Tree-based farming systems, this is probably one of the most important areas which our entire country is focusing on nowadays. Because of our commitments to the abatement of the climate change, India has already signed to the Paris Agreement, and you all know that we need to enhance the tree cover in the not only in the forest areas but also in the trees outside the forest. That is the area which we need to focus much as far as our Indian context is concerned. We have our intended nationally determined contributions, INDC. INDC commitments of our country is huge, and we need to restore so much of or sequester so much of carbon through several means. And India has declared that by 2030, India is going to achieve this by developing more tree cover in the trees outside the forest. And this is going to achieve through various strategies like agroforestry, farm forestry, social forestry, plantation forestry. These are all the strategies government of India has been planned. And many states have been given targets because their climate change action plans are there. I'm not going into details of that. I'll be focusing more on the trees outside the forest, because what is TOF? It's a very, very familiar term nowadays, because it tells you that the trees outside the forest, that refers to trees on the land not defined as a forest and other wooded land, for all trees growing outside the recorded forest area, irrespective of the patch size. This is also given by our Forest Survey of India. We have, I think you all know about the Forest Survey of India has a report. It's a biennial report, and it's called State of the Forest Reports. And as per these reports, we have the latest report. Also, we have the account of the trees outside the forest in our country. The trees outside the forest, if you look at the 2019 document, it's very, very, very alarming to see that almost the entire country is having a very, very less area under tree cover in our agroecosystems, except for states like Kerala or some of the northeastern states. You can see the trees cover in the agroecosystem is less than 5%. Whereas in Kerala, maybe Kerala is one, Kerala and Goa, these are some of the states where they have more than 30%. Even in Kerala, the most ironical fact is that the tree cover in the forest is much lower than that in the agroecosystem. In the forest, it's only 21%, whereas in the agroecosystem, it is only more than 30%. Well, I'm not going to the details of why should we go for the trees in the forest, the trees outside the forest, or why should we enhance or increase the tree cover. There are ecological reasons, there are socio-economic reasons. Because our forests give you a lot of lessons how much ecologically resilient our forests are in combating the climate change. So naturally, that kind of a message need to be transferred to the agroecosystems. I'm not reading them one by one. We will go to another very important slide, which tells you exactly about why should we integrate the trees in the agroecosystems or agriculture fields. That terminology itself is called agroforestry. No, see, this is the forest ecosystem. See, a forest ecosystem is called a tight ecosystem where the nutrients are not leaked. Nutrients are being absorbed by a pump from the soil through root system, and then they go to the soil, to the trees, and the leaves will be shedding them, and they will be contributing to enrich the soil. Even the roots which die, the fine roots which die in the soil, also get enriched. So they do a kind of fertilization in the soil. So this is what is exactly happening in a forest ecosystem. But you just see the second one is an agriculture system where it is totally leaky system, because so much of productivity is or the biomass is being removed from the system all the time. So there is nothing is being added to the soil to enrich, to maintain the fertility status of the soil. So we can say that in terms of the nutrients, in terms of the water conservation, in terms of the productivity, you can see that the agriculture system is a poor system or a leaky system. So what is the lesson we need to learn from this is that the forest is a very good system, but agriculture system is a leaky system. We need to blend these two together as an agroforestry system, where we judiciously integrate the trees in the agriculture fields, so that some of the lessons from the forest can be translated into the agriculture field. This is what is the most important one. Now, in this context, tropical home gardens have got a lot of relevance. I don't know how many of you know about the Nurul Islams are maybe knowing, because Bangladesh is a place where there is plenty of home gardens are existing. In Kerala, we have plenty of home gardens. Home gardens are time-tested, unique traditional land use practices. You won't find this kind of system everywhere in the world, and they are much more important in the daily life, in the livelihood security of the poor farmers in these sectors. They are the epitome of biodiversity or sustainability, and they meet the dietary requirements. They are wood-dominated or tree-dominated systems. You can see they resemble like a natural forest. And that is the beauty of the home gardens. They resemble like a natural forest, and they have got multi-layers. So from the ecological point of view, they are a kind of tight system which promote all kinds of ecological resilience. High carbon sequestration potential and climate change mitigation and adaptation. These are all the potential advantages of home gardens. Of course, this is the home. It is because every home garden is having a home definitely, and the premises will be the home garden. There will be small home gardens, medium home gardens, large home gardens likewise, and they meet the food, nutritional, and raw material. All kinds of functional advantages are being met from these systems. Distribution, they are distributed almost in the tropics. Almost in the tropics, and it is ironical to see that tropical home gardens are existing in those areas in the tropics where the livelihood or the socio-economic status of the people are very, very poor. And they are found in Java. They are called Talagaban or Perkarangan. In Java, it's called Pekarangan. Eastern Africa, it is there. It is in Central America. It is there in Kerala, definitely. It is there in Sri Lanka. It is there in Bangladesh. It is there in Burkina Faso. Many various. I have not taken all. I've just so this is the broader perspective, broader coverage of the distribution of the home gardens. Well, the characteristics of the home gardens, they have structural, functional, managerial, and dynamics of the home gardens. Many things have been discussed since the moderator has given me only very few time. I'm not going into the details of all those things. Well, you can see this web, the food web attached to the home gardens. See, there is a close interaction happening between the food security. Tree crops are there. They address the food crops. They address the vegetables requirements. They address the livestock security. They address the cash crop security. So it is a kind of integrated system wherein diverse components have been very judiciously integrated. Well, this is what I simply said. You can see all the three: social, ecological, and economic. These three are the pillars of the home gardens. Well, significance of the home gardens, definitely they contribute to the climate change amelioration, soil and water conservation, carbon sequestration, control of the pollution, flood control, tsunami. So many ecological benefits are there. The socio-economic benefits, probably they are the most important aspects because they give you an array of diverse products, not only trees, many crops, animal components. So it is a system wherein you get multiple products. So even if a glut happens in the market for a particular product, you'll be definitely getting the product from another source. So when you have multiple products, the advantage is that the farmer is never affected. In one way or other, he or she will be getting continuously the benefits. Well, if you look at the number of the woody plants in the home gardens of different countries, you can see that the Indian home garden Kerala is also in the top, and the Pekarangan home gardens in Java, or they are also called the Javanese home gardens. This is the Pekarangan home gardens. They have but 199 woody species, whereas Kerala is having 127, and Tanzania and other are also in between. Well, when you come to the Indian context, again, you can see Kerala, Assam, Mizoram, Upper Assam, Meghalaya, Andaman. These are all the areas where we find plenty of home gardens. Kerala is having 473, whereas Upper Assam is having 294 total number of species. So this tells you about the diversity of the species in the different home gardens in our country. Now, the early studies suggest Kerala. This is a study, Kumar, of course, Dr. Kumar, Mohan Kumar, he has done a lot of studies on the home gardens of Kerala. Of course, I too had involved in a lot of studies on the home gardens of Kerala. These are some of the preliminary studies. The standing stock, you can see 6.6 to 50 cubic meter per hectare is a standing stock, and standing stock of fuel wood also you can see. And since such diversity index is highly variable, and it go even up to 0.7. 0.7 you find in most deciduous forests, and even evergreen forests we find such diversity. Well, I'm not going to the details of all these things. The average number of herbs, shrubs, and the tree species present in many panchayats in the small, medium, and large home gardens of Kerala. You can see this is herbs, then you can see shrubs, trees, and the total. The interesting aspect is that this is the small home garden, medium, and large home garden. The number of species is more in the medium and small home gardens as compared to large home gardens. It's a very interesting aspect. Right. Okay. The reason is, I'll tell you why it happens. The simple reason is that large home gardens will be mostly having more monocrop based, or they will be like a coconut or arecanut, or so the species diversity will be relatively lower in large home gardens as compared to small home gardens. Whereas the small home gardens meet almost all the family requirements of the family, so that functional diversity is extremely high. Well, it's a very interesting. You can see that you can in fact divide the structurally. You can vertical stratification of a home garden. You can see most of the home gardens. For example, this is the Javanese home garden where they have 5 strata, like first story, second story, third story, fourth story, and you find almost 65 to 70% of the species of the relative frequency of the number of species will be in the lower story, or that is up to 1 meter height. So that's very interesting. When you look at the functional diversity of the home gardens, again, it is very interesting. You can see they provide you almost all kinds of your dietary requirements, nutritional requirements. But if you look at the peri-urban and urban home gardens, always peri-urban or rural home gardens are giving you much better result, much better composition as compared to urban home gardens. And among the various functional components, you can see that fruit plants give you the highest, because fruit trees are giving a lot of, one of the most important component of our home gardens is the fruit plants. Well, these are all the studies which we did on the home gardens, peri-urban, urban home gardens, the number of plant species. There is a large gap between the urban and peri-urban home gardens in terms of the number of plant species as well as in terms of the number of tree species. Well, standing stock of carbon, because we said about it is a climate resilient system, or it's a climate friendly system. Why? Simply because of the tree component available and sequester considerable amount of carbon in the soil. So this picture is a very important, very interesting study on the carbon, soil organic carbon content in the various ecosystems, where you can see this HGL is the home garden large, HGS is the home garden small, as compared to any other systems, of course, except for the forest and rubber. You can see that home gardens give you reasonably high. And another interesting aspect is that smaller home gardens are sequestering more carbon in the soil as compared to larger home gardens because of their high diversity. So diversity is very much directly proportional to the soil organic carbon content. This is a vertical stratification of the soil. You can see it is a 0 to 20 centimeter depth, 20 to 50 centimeter depth, 50 to 80 centimeter. See, in all these depths, even at the 80 to 100 centimeter depth, you can see the large and small home gardens give you reasonably high carbon content. So what does that indicate? For example, the last one is the paddy. Paddy is giving you the least because the root system is not reaching to the lower depths. Okay, whereas home gardens give you the root system, penetrate deeper into the soil, and they provide you a lot of fertilization by way of the root dynamics. Root dynamics, so it's called the fine root dynamics. Fine root dynamics. Well, I'm not going to the different tree species. You have a lot of changes that happened in the recent times. For example, in 1994, this was the preference in Kerala for the tree species. Now it has been changed, and you can see tree species, both timber species as well as fruit trees, have got a lot of preference in the recent times. Home gardens, soil diversity is also very, very important. Well, coming to the climate, the resilience of the home gardens. See, the richness of the woody component, on the availability of large number of tree species, they sequester considerable amount of carbon both in the above ground biomass and in the soil. That leads to a resilience to the climate change. And the high species diversity and soil faunal diversity is another important factor. And the patterns of carbon sequestration are quite unique in the home gardens. I have already mentioned that even in deeper depths, the home gardens are able to sequester considerable amount of carbon in the soil. Well, only partial removal. That is important. See, unlike other plantations, we are not removing everything from the home gardens. It is relatively permanent. That is, and below ground root growth is another important. We have already discussed that. And the great agrobiodiversity. I have already mentioned that you will never find any kind of agriculture system where so much of biodiversity is maintained. That's why it's called the epitome of biodiversity. Well, gender dimensions, because it's very interesting to see that women are managing the home gardens. They take part in the development of the home gardens, in harvesting of the home garden products, processing of the home garden process. And study revealed that 52% of the women participate in decision making in selecting species for the home gardens. Well, this is a very interesting thing. See, in Kerala, we get about 35% of our wood requirement from the home gardens. And if you look at the rubber, if you add up the rubber and home garden provide you almost 80% of our wood requirements, and the forest provide you very less. Forest department provide you only 1.6%. It's a very interesting aspect. Well, I'm not going to the details of what's happening in the Kerala in the recent years. So much of issues are happening in Kerala. Decline in the productivity has been. See, this red line is nothing but it is rice. Rice was 750,000 hectares of rice was there during the 1960s, and that has scooped down or come down to very, very less, and it is less than 2 lakhs now. So almost many of the products, except for the rubber, there has been an increase in the rubber. This green indicates an increase in the number, whereas almost all the products. So this is what is the scenario happening in our country. It is applicable to almost all the states. the kind of scrupulous and unscientific exploitation of the natural resources, right? Well, shifting the trends in the home gardens, because home gardens are declining very much in Kerala and in other parts of the country, and the paddy fields are declining, or they convert the structural configuration of the home gardens, and the precious paddy fields are being converted. This is a very interesting phenomenon. This is a study we did very recent. I mean, we did in 2012. It's a very interesting study. We have the satellite imagery of a particular region in 2001, and exactly the same frame we took in 2012 using the satellite imagery, and you can see the kind of land use change. See, so much of built-in areas has come, right? So there are a lot of shifts or the issues happening. I will tell you, rapid urbanization is one important major issue that is affecting the home gardens. Land fragmentation in Kerala, every year we have, for example, 10 lakh new settlement has come in Kerala during the last 5 years. So home gardens are being fragmented. That is one of the important issue. Alternate opportunity cost of the land, because land is very precious. When you have these kinds of lands, they have got other land use options. So they are being scrupulously, or they are being indiscriminately, they have been removed or they have been affected. Next, I'm going to the conclusions because I've been rushing through because of the time limits. Human topics undergo unusual and undesirable land use changes, and in this context, climate change and its associated havocs have probably compounded the issues much complicated. And there is a paradigm shift towards responsible agriculture, responsible land use practices, which takes care of the climate change, or which are resilient to climate change, which are adaptable to the climate change. And decline in the home garden productivity of the tree belt calls for paradigm shifts. And probably we need to undertake strategies like revitalization of the tropical home gardens. Government of Kerala has taken a lot of measures for the revitalization of the tropical home gardens, because they are the traditional home gardens. They have been evolved through thousands and thousands of years of crop intensification by the family. It's a family order. So the parental, it goes back to several generations. Okay, so such a time-tested system need to be preserved, and they need to be ecologically, they need to be made ecologically and economically viable. Okay, there must be strategies for the promotion of the tree farming, profitable auction, awareness on the climate resilience of the agroforest, and potential ecosystem services. Okay, so payment for ecosystem services, that is very important area, because the home gardeners probably are maintaining large number of trees in their homesteads, which are responsible for maintaining their hydrological balance, maintaining the soil health, and many ecological services are rendered by the home gardens. By simply maintaining some tree in his forest, in his premises, that is contributing to many people in the surroundings. So that particular person is definitely deserve a kind of compensation for not cutting the tree for the benefit of the others, for not cutting the trees for the benefit of the others. So that particular person is definitely is to be rewarded for that through payment for ecosystem services. And the government agencies, government also should forward for promoting these kind of payments to the ecosystem services.